powerful art that sticks with you is usually the result of technical skill and some indefinable thing, a kind of lightning in a bottle that shocks life into an illustration. Djamila Knopf is an independent artist from Germany who seems to have shelves of bottled lightning that she applies to her work, garnering her over 300,000 Instagram followers and counting, and a career doing personal work. In this mini-series, Djamila talks to Bobby about her schoolism class, story-driven illustrations, and her personal techniques for catching lightning over and over again.
Okay, so Djamila, thank you so much for your time. I want to talk a little bit about some questions about your class on schoolism, story-driven illustrations, very exciting. It focuses on many things, but all these things, they revolve around story and evoking emotions in one way or another. For those that do not know, can you please explain why story and evoking emotions from the audience are important for you in your art?
Yeah, I think for me, this is the most important part of what I create. I think when you see an illustration that evokes emotions in you, that has a story, you're more likely to resonate. You're more likely to respond to it and to communicate with it in a way, because that's also how you remember it. Like, you see so many images throughout the day, like in advertisements or whatever, but those that tell a story are the ones that are going to stick in your mind, because it's just, as humans, we are created to respond to stories and to remember stories and remember things in a story format in a way. So for me, yeah, that's the most important part, to just be able to, hit that spot in people. I have so many people coming up to me at conventions when they look at my work and they say, oh, this evokes such a strong feeling. I can't even explain it. It's just like so familiar, but also like I've never experienced this before. So if you really can tap into that emotional area in your work, that is just worth so much. I think all the things I love, media stuff that I've seen as a kid, I don't necessarily remember what was happening, but how I felt about it when I saw it. So that for me is like so important.
There's so many key points that you just touched on. Like I start to think about movies or TV shows that I really love, and the ones with the good story, even if it maybe looked a little low budget, things like that, it's totally okay when the story is good.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing that you really touched on, which I love, is you connected it seamlessly with remembering. Right? A good story is how we remember things. And when you started saying that, what I was thinking of was like fairy tales.
Yeah.
Folklore, right? And some of the stories that I remember the most is like when there's something gruesome that happens to the little kids and things like that in these stories. I'm like, oh, okay, I shouldn't go into the forest by myself. But hearing everything that you said, I love how much you got into every sentence, because like I know I remember those stories because of the emotion that it evoked for me.
Right? So you could tell someone, you shouldn't go into the forest, it's dangerous. But if there was this girl, and she went into the forest and this happened to her, you're like, oh my God, I should really not go into the forest.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a lot of brilliant assignments in your class. Can we give the people for YouTube maybe a little mini assignment that they could do to help kind of exercise that whole entire thing of story and evoking emotions?
For me, it's kind of funny because I have a lot of people asking me, like, how do you come up with your ideas? And it's like, to me, it's somehow the easiest thing, really, because I talk about different methods that you can use to, get ideas out and develop ideas. So that would be part of the class. And one of my favorites is actually something I learned when I was writing my master's thesis about Miyazaki films. And they talked about how he has a location-based process in telling stories. So, for example, when you take Spirited Away, you remember how she was like eating with her parents, at that market, and it was getting dark. And then she goes to the bathhouse. And then there's this scene on the train, and, she's riding along with no face and stuff. So that really, those places, they stick in your mind, and you connect the story that happens there with those places. So what I like to do is I browse a ton of images. That's just what I do. I love collecting images and categorizing them. It's weird, but yeah, that's what I do. So I see this image of like a mountain range, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. I want to paint something like that. And what could happen in this place? What could people be doing there? Let me think of an example. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was riding a lot of trains because we didn't have a car. So I remember train stations like very, very vividly. So I was just painting a train station one day, and I was like, okay, what could a person be doing there? They could be waiting for a train, obviously. So once you have that place figured out, it's just very natural to progress to, what a story could be there, taking place there. So for me, the easiest story format I can give to people is just like, who is doing what and where? And I like to start at the where and, go from that. So then you have a story, someone is waiting for their bus. Someone is drinking coffee at a coffee shop. Someone is taking a nap on the couch while the TV is running, maybe. So it's just like those little things that can, create more ideas and give you more details that come to you when you just have this very, very basic structure to start off with.
That's fantastic. The things that I was thinking about as you're telling me this was like, I like to paint fantasy stuff. I like to paint, whimsical, totally imaginative stuff. And I'm sitting in my little room, my little office here, with the door closed, and I'm looking at my surroundings thinking it's quite boring. But then I start thinking, okay, well, what would Djamila do? I'm thinking, well, maybe she would think about this if it was totally whimsical and stuff. Maybe this is a little cave, right? Yeah. And then the door's opening, and then there's this predator looking at me. Well, this is more like my own kind of ideas.
Yeah, but it's perfect.
Right? And then it's like that whole entire story of this big predator looking into a little burrow. And then the emotion would be, I'd want to give the audience the emotion of what if you were the little animal that was in the burrow.
Yes, right. And then that leads to the next point. Like when you have a story, like a person is drinking coffee at a coffee shop, it's like, how do you want to present that? How do you want the audience to feel about it? You can feel like, that's also an example I use in my class as well. You can make it feel kind of lonely and depressed. Maybe the person is waiting for someone and they're not showing up. What does that look like? How can this be reflected like in the space? Maybe it looks a little bleak. Maybe it's raining outside, or maybe it can feel just like really cozy because they're taking time off. They're just relaxing and there's like nice sunlight coming in. Once you have your idea, you can think about how to approach it from different angles.
I love that. So for those of you out there that want to take on the challenge, look at your surroundings, look at a surrounding, an environment, and start your thinking from there. Start to create your ideas from there. And of course, if you want to push it further, highly recommend taking Djamila's class, Story Driven Illustrations, on schoolism.com.